death for me. I only deal with equality, that's the recipe. So don't keep asking why Allah keep blessing me. It's obvious, ain't it, from every verse I have painted. The minute details is why she fell and fainted. Baccarat with a little Clive Christian, smell like a Danish. Got where he got, no kissing anus. I did it without sucking, no CDL, I kept trucking. I rose out the funk I was stuck in and put mash in motion. Now the ones I wanted a verse from saying pass the potion. Now they want to get baptized. I never ever in my life looked up to rap guys. I know the truth, you niggas soft as my bitch backside. Talk a lot of tough shit, see me and backslide. I ain't got no rap for real for none of you rap guys. A nigga diss me, I'ma spin like the Jack.
Welcome back, everybody. We got another Tuesday episode. I'm very honored and pleased to have our first Native American warrior brother upon us. You know, he's from Akwesasne. This podcast is delivered to people to inspire upon people's past and to the present right now. This pod's gonna get really interesting because you know we can relate in so many different ways. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr.
Mitch Jocko from Akwesasne.
Welcome. So with that being said, you know what I mean, you're from Akwesasne, which is another native territory, correct?
Yes.
What's I mean, I know from territory is the living and everything as a youth, and our upbringing is very similar, you know. So how can you elaborate and enlighten what we went through, what you went through, you know, as children, you know, that didn't know what our future is going to hold for us? What was it like in Akwesasne?
Growing up, you got to remember, you know, I was raised in a secret society, the Warrior Society. My uncle Dwayne Jocko was a trailblazer to the cigarette trade in the early 90s. So you got to remember, you know, in like early 90s, you know, the way I was living ain't the status quo for a child in mainstream society. You know, having a warrior base on our property with, you know, armed security, gun towers, and not really knowing that what I'm in at that early age, you know, and realizing the magnitude of everything when I'm older, you know what I mean? And you got to remember, you know, you're 12 years old in a secret society with armed warriors with AK-47, you know, they're to protect the sovereignty of our nation, you know. And every nation has sovereignty, which is handling your own political and economics, you know. I was 12 years old shooting off AKs and loading up cigarettes, you know. My uncle was running a $50 million empire from 92 to 95, and the feds interrupted that, you know. My uncle was financing a warrior society out of his pockets from the 80s to the early 90s, you know, just for the cause and everything, what he stood for, you know, so.
Being that you brought up the warrior side, I'd like to elaborate and touch on that because a lot of people get misconstrued by that. And in the government's eyes, they're labeled as a gang and an organized group, but really that's our governing body. And if you really want to get technical, we can go down to the Turo Wampum, which was an agreement that was made by the colonistic and our Haudenosaunee and our ways, exactly. Our people. And that Turo Wampum lays out the simple fact that the colonistic people will not come over in our canoe or on our land and dictate what we do, nor will we jump over in their ship and try to guide their vessel.
Exactly.
And all that got misconstrued underneath these developments of businesses, I guess you could say, and the evolution of the colonistic ways, correct?
Yes.
Within our territories.
Yes.
And the Warrior Society is our warriors grouped together to protect our rights.
It's basically our National Guard.
Absolutely.
You got to remember, every male born in our society is a warrior at birth. And we got duties and obligations when we get older. Protect the women, children, protect our territory, because we are a nation within a nation. You know, we never surrendered our sovereignty. So, you know, we got to protect our nation from foreign occupation, which is the feds, state troopers, the army, by them invading and coming to our territories, it's basically invading our sovereignty. And if you really want to get technical, that's an act of war right there. You don't see Canada can just going into, Russia's, territory or their waterways, So back then, that whole thing with my uncle, like financing a warrior society, they're actually uplifting oppression from foreign occupation. Like those gun towers were meant to shoot at cops, boats coming into our waterways, Other than that, it's deep, Even like the Constitution is native law,
It's outlined from our ways and our
exactly.
beliefs.
Freedom of speech, freedom of religion is our concept. Benjamin Franklin and John Adams were statesmen. They're meeting up with the Confederacy the ambassadors in Fort Orange, which is Albany, and at that time it was on Dutch occupation. So you got to remember when these Europeans landed, on mainstream curriculum. That's why with schools, like, I'd rather see, my kids be in the longhouse full-fledged than go to a university because, like schools still facilitate our oppression by not exposing the true history of these countries.
The information that they're hiding from the public's eyes.
Exactly. And we're the founders of democracy. It don't come from the so-called cradles of civilization like in Europe or Middle East because they're underneath king and queen dictatorship. You got to remember in mainstream curriculum, they want to, paint the picture of these pilgrims as righteous. No, those are the worst that came out of Europe. They brought the diseases. They were the rapists. They were the murderers, and they're fleeing from dictatorship. So when they landed, they had no constitution. The 13 original colonies, they had no structure. So, freedom of speech and religion were our concept. But they don't talk about that in mainstream curriculum. That's why us being being in the Air Corps Confederacy, we got that stepping stone to uplift the sovereignty because, the Constitution is native law,
Now back to your youth. With you understanding all this right now, you were being taught that as a kid. At what age do you think you really understood what your rights and what your duties were as what you were being trained and what you were being shown? Not trained because it's not being trained. It's our natural duties to do this.
I wasn't taught. You got to remember when I came out my mother's womb in 1981, I was already assimilated in white society. That's what they wanted was us to melt away in a wash and, in the melting pot and become American or a Canadian citizen, which, in my ancestry, I can go back to the early 1700s with my mother being Onondaga, and on the Mohawk side, I can go to the early 1800s. Remind you, Canada is only 153 years old. It's a baby country, so going back to the early 1800s, Canada wasn't even a country. Going back to the 1700s on my mother's side, the United States wasn't even a country yet. So that's why I can always claim my sovereignty because I never took oath to uphold American and Canadian laws, which is corporate man-made laws. The supreme law of the land is the great law. You can't alter that. You know what I mean? But I didn't wake up until 98 when I first went and I got incarcerated. I totaled up 17 years incarceration. And I basically woke up in 98 when I picked up my first book, Traditional Teachings, even though that was underneath the Handsome Laker Corps and being ignorant. Everybody's ignorance, just a lack of knowledge, not knowing that this prophet that are rectified in the 1700s was a treasonous. And he basically implemented the Handsome Laker Corps, which is... You go anywhere around the world, if it's Christian laws, Islamic laws, Jewish laws, you can't alter the supreme law of the land. It's treasonous. You get killed for that. So that prophet should have died in the 1700s, but he died a full-blown alcoholic going back to Onondaga. Us, we don't pay taxes or we don't vote. That's foreign concept. We don't pray. We give thanks. And This was a prophet that was endorsing the concepts of heaven and hell, and also endorsing repentant. You know what I mean? And you know, this is a man, a prophet that was having dreams about Jesus. You know what I mean? To each is their own. You know what I mean? I don't look down on no religion. You know what I mean? But I'm definitely in tune who we are.
What brought you to your incarceration?
Me, man, you know, growing up in a dysfunctional home, you know, being mentally and physically abused, yo, that played a toll on my come up, you know, and a lot of anger and resentment towards my father, and I always told myself like, yo, man, I would never let nobody make me feel how my father made me feel. Like, you know, I'll fucking kill you. You know what I mean? Excuse my language. So it's like this, you know, I'm living this lifestyle, and if my intentions are sincere, you step on my toes, then I react, you know, and I learned in prison, you know, it's better just to hit it full force than go in half-ass, you know what I mean? Because in the streets, you know, fear is stronger than love. But my first case was serious gun charges in '98. I had reckless endangerment, shooting, robbery. But my cousin ended up dropping dimes on me. I was 16, he was 14, but still were raised not to do stuff in that nature, you know. And I basically didn't get over that until like 5 years ago. But with that being said, I ended up beating up the charges, but I ended up catching assault while confining a correction facility in the county, which was a D felony or an E felony. And within, I had my time in, I copped out to a year to drop all the serious charges. So that was a win for me, but I didn't feel that year, you know, because growing up, one of my punishments was being locked in my room for months and only allowed to come out to eat and use the bathroom. So I learned at an early age how to make good time in being confined, you know, playing Nintendo, playing with my Ninja Turtles. So now that I'm older, I didn't even feel that. I thought it was a joke. Then I get out, I caught a 7-year bid, you know, a month before my 18th birthday. You know, ended up getting a 3.5 to 7. So from 16 to 21, I was incarcerated, you know what I mean? And then I did a lot of time, you know, after that. I did 42 months off the 3.5. So from November of '99, I got out May 2003. I was only out a month. I left Akwesasne, you know, but at that time, you know, I was involved in, you know, with my teachings. You know, one of my teachers, Born Justice, God Body, he's master to the 52 block. Saigon was in Akwesasne, and I missed him by weeks, but not if months. But Born Justice had 31 years incarceration. So what he did to Saigon, he did to me. Bring me to law library. First book he gave me was Malcolm X, African American History, which is a real in-depth, deep book, you know, talking about Willie Lynch, you know, the slave maker, you know, about his manifesto that he prophesied 300 years ago, the situation that, you know, African Americans are in to this day, you know, and also wrote, you know, wrote how to make a slave, you know, like the formula. It's very mind-boggling, you know, because mainstream curriculum with African American history only goes back to, you know, the slaves in the plantation, but they don't talk about the slave trader or the slave makers in the West Indies, you know what I mean? But you got to remember, you know, we all going through the struggle, you know, African American with the slavery, culture genocide, with us going to boarding schools, you know, it was all designed to keep us oppressed, you know, but every great, you know, every how can I say it? Every great nation
Goes through that struggle.
Yeah, you know. So anyways, you know, I got out of my incarceration. I was only out a month, and the way statistics are that we're all going back. You know what I mean? recidivism kicks in. You go back to your old ways and habits. And at that time, I got out in 03. I was a month. I couldn't get a job, even at KFC. You know, even though I wanted to do all the positive things that I wanted to do, it was, you know, everything was
failure was setting in.
Exactly. So I ended up getting drunk in a high-speed chase, and next thing you know, I'm on the run. You know, I would have been a third-time felony offender. So if I get a year for the first felon, 7 for the second, I'm in double digits football numbers. You know what I mean? But the pro officer didn't know that I was due citizenship with Canada, with my treaties. You know, being Mohawk. So I got a social insurance number and a social security number. So I took refugee to Canada for 20 years, and I was actually on the run. You know. And it was just crazy because, you know, I got in a lot more stuff over there.
When did they release you from parole?
They just discharged it in 2021. Almost 20 years on the run. Yeah.
So you beat the statute of limitations.
I don't think it was statute of limitation, but I know they changed parole around every day that you're on to give back, you know. And but they knew all along that I was in Canada hiding, but they couldn't extradite me, only for murder. And
so how do you think that really affected your life right now? The past 20 years to get to where you're at, to understanding life right now.
Affected me a lot, you know, because I got 20 years away from my immediate family, you know, on the American side, you know. All my siblings and cousins are older, you know. I lost a lot of family members, and I was still living life on the edge over there, you know. You got to remember, my uncle was running a $50 million empire, so, you know, he had ties with the mob, the Irish mob, the bikers. You know, they used to come buy cigarettes and get across the border, you know. He'll tell these organized people, you know, like, you guys are fighting the streets, so I'm fighting against the government, you know. So they kind of fear him because he was a man of power. You got to remember, this was a man that was financing our militia, you know, the Warrior Society, for finances from his pocket. And, you know, it's like you got an Indian in a first world country arming you know, financing an armed militia like he's in a third world country. It's going to be problems, you know. And they had to get rid of him. So when the feds got him in 95, you know, my uncle was on a house arrest bail for 7 years. So 2002, and then 05, he died, you know. But there's a lot there, though, because he's a trailblazer. You know, we had the first cigarette factory in 92, 800,000 from Switzerland, and basically, you know, enforcing our sovereignty, you know, manufacturing, distributing to our sister communities, which is our... It
is each nation's right to...
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And that comes from the Jay Treaty in the late 1700s out of Pennsylvania with the Americans in Great Britain.
Also, the Jay Treaty also touches on education, too, I believe.
And with navigation, that their borders won't persist to us, you know.
Yeah, with freedom of passage.
Yes, and that we could come in and out these countries by inlet or outlet. You know, my reservation actually half Canada, United States.
It's really a shame that we go through what we go through, the struggle still, and the recognizations that we don't get as Uncle Hoe and, you know, Mohawks and Tuscaroras that we are. Mm-hmm. Senecas and everything. The hoops that we got to jump through on a continuous basis to extend and express our rights.
Exactly. So basically, face your fears, all or nothing. You know, you got to step up to the plate and enforce our sovereignty. You know, again, we don't pay taxes or we don't vote. That's foreign concepts from Europe. So they strategically implemented elective chiefs, because in our society, our clan mothers, you know, elected the chiefs. They also had, they're running the whole democracy and had, you know, veto for war and stop war, you know. But they strategically implemented the voting, because you got to remember, the United States and Canada, you know, the prime minister and the president is basically CEOs of corporations. All they do is manage money around the world. So these elective chiefs, they're just an umbrella underneath the federal government. You know, these grand chiefs on these reserves that get elected in, they can never make change for us. They cause a ripple effect.
Because their best interest is for themselves and only
Well,
themselves.
you know, they're doing their jobs for their slave masters in D.C., right? And who pays their wages? The federal government. You know, so our grand chiefs, basically all they doing is just managing yearly money from the federal government that goes into programs. But you know us, doing business, if it's cigarettes or gas or whatever the nature be, it's free enterprise, and it's commonwealth for everybody. You know what I mean? But you know they try to make it to like a dictatorship. You know they want to be in control, but I don't recognize the band office has no authority over my well-being. You know, because I don't utilize.
That's a BIA recognized number. You know, and
Exactly.
People fail to realize that the chiefs that are condoled, if they issue those BIA recognized numbers, they're sellouts within themselves.
Exactly.
This is information that's really not out there and discussed within our community outside of that, because this is what we face ourselves.
Exactly.
And me personally, this used to irk me and bug me, and I used to always act on a violent way. I was very uneducated. So being uneducated, I didn't really have the best interest to think. I just acted.
I get you.
And as I progressed through incarceration, through those bars, you know what I mean, where I start picking up books and I start educating myself a little by little, you know, because I wanted to challenge my sentence, saying I was being challenged in the wrong venue.
Mm-hmm.
So I started learning, and when I started learning, it really started opening my eyes to a lot of things out. What you're speaking on from your territory, this is relevant to my territory.
Exactly.
And that's why I said this episode's about to get interesting, because the sequence and the beautifulness within this information that is not spoken about is a beautiful cause right now. And I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, that's
So
all
go
good.
ahead.
You gotta remember, before European contact, we were born with 5 senses. 2 eyes to see, 2 ears to listen, and a mouth to speak the truth. This day, a lot of people in our community are sleeping giants. They're programmed to wake up, go to work, pay some taxes, watch a ball game. Why these elites are controlling the world, you know what I mean? From a small scale to a big scale, So you gotta remember, we're not even supposed to get federal or state jobs, because we're helping their nation flourish. You know what I mean?
Once you take the oath, you're jumping over into their ship,
but
you're guiding their vessel.
Exactly, But when you're ignorant, you don't know, But if you know it, then it's problematic, Knowledge is power, ignorance is death, and knowing your past is knowing your future, right? There's a time for all of us to wake up, Don't matter if you're African American, like Malcolm X, all those great leaders, And for us, at the end of the day, it's up to us to wake up and really see what's going on, to pave the way, and really plant those seeds in those ignorant minds, that can make the change, We can't do it one person, we got to feed those minds with knowledge and come, politically correct, There's a lot going on, man, out there, it's sad, right?
Speaking of coming politically correct, at what point did you understand that your anger and everything of what you understand, that treason and all that violations towards our people of your upbringing in the society change you to, instead of becoming violent, to humble it and understand it better?
This during my 17 years in incarceration, I did a lot of reading, those 17 years I made good use of my time, working out, coming in tune, and coming centered, mentally, emotionally, spiritually,
That balance.
Exactly. Once you gain in that knowledge, you're waking up, you can see what's going on, you see it on a different perspective than just being, a sleeping giant,
You don't give off the impression that you individual that went on the run for 20 some years now. You seem like you're very reserved. You're educated. You're focused on expressing yourself. You're focused on the information and knowledge that you hold and you've learned.
Exactly. I'm a very peaceful person. Me growing up, I never liked arrogant people or bullies. So with that being said, with that waking up, it's just being a leader, and just being positive. And I've been through some stuff, bro. It's been dark since '98 to 2020. I actually came back in April thinking I was still wanted, but then I found out a document in Onondaga County for parole release, and I got discharged.
Would you say you had a lot of depression during that time? Anxiety?
Yeah, when I got out, my last case, I was in for 2 years fighting. I lost two cousins. One of my cousins in 2018, in the beginning, got killed, got shot, and robbed and chopped up by other Indians on my reserve. And with that being said, another cousin died. Somebody gave him dirty drugs, So I hit the streets hard, If I'm a civilian, I'll call the cops, but I wasn't raised that way. So I went and shook up, to see what really happened, which I found out everything what happened, but next thing you know, I'm on the run, and it cost me 2 years. But what really shook me up is the way how the cops conducted their case with me. It was unethical, and they went far beyond it to try to convict me. Because I got a timeline of violence, but not at the point where I'm harming public safety. I'm out there doing stuff that I'm not supposed to. It's just with other people, stepping on toes, and every action's a reaction, right? But I don't regret nothing, because I want to be who I am, And again, it's sad that I had to go into the Iron Man house to wake up, and really find out who I am, my DNA makeup, our ceremonies, our treaties, and going back all the way back to our first council meeting with our peacemaker, So with that all being said, once you gain that knowledge, you got responsibilities to lead by example, right? But it is what it is. It's part of my journey.
So what would you suggest to our youth, our native youth, to try to uplift them and not, glamorize what you went through and the struggles that you went through that impacted your life and the mental health errors that are afflicted upon your life to this day? How can you uplift our native community, just not our natives, but everybody in general listening?
To gain knowledge, you know what I mean? To trace those roots of peace, and go back and just digest, because that's going to open up the eyes, you know what I mean? You gotta remember, a lot of us is assimilated, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, 500 years of war, we're still here talking about it. That just lets me know that they couldn't penetrate and break our DNA, you know what I mean?
Our youth is misguided though, and their understanding is not present because the information is not spoken about.
Exactly.
And what's spoken about is misled and misconstrued to the youth in a fashion I feel as though that we're colonized and we're using them as chess pieces. We're not using them as warriors to educate them and uplift them and teach them our duties.
Exactly. But we gotta remember the majority of them are lost, so how can they really lead by example? And even even play that role as utilizing them as chess pieces. We're all caught up, As soon as you wake up and gain knowledge, because knowledge is power, ignorance is death, Mm-hmm. And once you get on that road and, you can go on and you Google everything and read everything who we are, you know what I mean? And I'm telling you, that would definitely wake you up and put more pride on your back, But then again, it comes responsibilities too, right?
Absolutely.
So...
So along those 20 years, you've met a few interesting people on your journeys.
I met a lot of people, especially being incarceration on the Canadian side. When I first went up in '99, I ended up in Green. I was for over a year in the same living unit with Jay Black. He was a character in the Belly movie. He's the one that DMX made strip in the basement, and then he ended up shooting Nas coming out the barbershop. So I met him and I got to walk with him, for over a year in Green. And come to find out, that was Biggie Small's best friend. In the movie, his name is Black. His government name is Jay Black, but he's in every Biggie video. And I got to, walk with him, and he shared a story. And you got to remember, at that time when you're young, a couple of years seems so long. But when Biggie died in '97, and now me and Jay Black is in Green, it seems so like that time period being a kid was so far apart, which in the essence is not. It's only a few months, And he had a lot of pictures. At that time, Eminem just came out. He had pictures of Alonda Lewis that worked for MTV, pictures of Puff Daddy. Puffy was writing from Bad Boy, So I got to walk with him. I mentored Jay Black. He did 31 years. He's Gall Body and mastered 52 Block, which is a fighting style that came out of Comstock, and on the Canadian side, I was locked up with a lot of organized people because it's easy for me to get close to these people just because the cloth in who my uncle was, because a lot of those old heads are still alive. So just my last name and me being, on the res, and I got access to come in and out these countries without going through customs, It's like, I don't need you, but you need me, So it opens up the doors to get close to the mob, Hells Angels, and next thing you know, it's like the money's there, the product's there, but I choose not to live that life no more. It's too easy,
So what about the music? You ever come in contact with anybody in the music industry?
Yeah, in 1999, I came across this special individual named Grea8 Gawd. I've been cahoots with him for 23 years now. So remind you, when I met him in 1999 in Syracuse, he put me on, Next thing you know, I'm on a block pitching like I'm on the Yankees, first inning. And I'm 17 years old, and these are older cats, And I may say, Grea8 Gawd, even though we're doing stuff in the streets, they never took advantage of my ignorancy. I used to go to the studio with them, sleep on his sofa. And you know what? You tell people in New York I was his best worker, He never had to burn the bags with me, So remind you, then I got incarcerated, and then I went on a run. And I'm watching all his success, from Canada, everything with French Montana, just everything with Dipset. And not knowing at that time, Joel's was in cahoots with us before he got signed, So there's a timeline of history there, you know what I mean? So this time last year, I got a hold of Grea8 Gawd, and he told me to come back, It was a no-brainer for me. I'm just getting out. My empire, crashed, and my diabetes kicked in. My long-term relationship fell, but I came over last April thinking I'm still wanted because I'm like this. I'd rather be worried about the 41 months from 2003 than worrying about them giving me life, which they're trying to do with my kidnappings, I had 4 lawyers, and, my last victim came in and recanted. So that was definitely like a win, right? So like I said, a couple months ago, I found out that I wasn't wanted and I got discharged, But I still live every day like I'm still wanted, If I'm not down in New York with Grea8 Gawd, or going to shows and helping him out with his movement, then I'm home.
How does that living a life like that impact your success? I mean, because if you're living like you want it still, how's that being successful?
Well, it just helps me to be more, not in the limelight. You know what I mean, and just be like, just be in positive atmospheres. Because I can go on the streets of Syracuse and do negativity, but you know what? I accumulated 17 years, and it's just not worth it. If I still would have been in Canada, I'm back indulging, doing things I'm not supposed to. Now it's like I'm right into the mainstream. Once he's really on, we're all on. And that's gonna be a whole different story right there. There's a lot of good things going on right now. You know what I mean? So right now, like I do stuff behind the scenes. He shows me the edit seat behind the camera. We go down there like we did Special 380 and Freeways video down in Philly. And I don't ask no money, I just do it off the strength, you know what I mean? I can't put a bag on being around all these special people in the industry, It's a beautiful thing, you know what I'm saying? So once things are really, set in motion, there's gonna be a lot of legitimate jobs, It'll be stupid if me go play in the streets and get caught up and I'm in a jam,
How do you measure success?
It's not really about the money, yo. Really, I made millions, spend money, spend millions. To me, really, success is just being healthy and doing positive things,
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is, And if you got the finances to give back, right?
Absolutely.
Do
you have any children?
Yeah, I got 2, but I really don't really want to elaborate on it because it's a dark element in my life right now. Dealing with my kid's mother, and she's a beautiful woman. I'm not gonna sit up here and try to cry wolf and throw underneath the bus. Everything the way it is right now is my fault. You know what I mean? And I gotta take accountability. That, and but I got access to talk and see them, but there's still a lot of bumps in the road.
Respect that. Definitely respect that.
Yeah. So. But my kid's mother is a beautiful, strong woman. I can't really say nothing bad about her. The situation is because of me.
So what positive aspect or impact would you say you've left on this world so far?
I really didn't feel like I really even leave a dent yet.
That's a beautiful one.
I'm in the process of writing my autobiography. I started in 2017. Then I got incarcerated for 2 years. So that went on hold. And then I get out and then COVID. So I go from one lockdown to another lockdown, My author works for CBC News, Jorge Barrera. He's amazing. And we're just chipping away at that. And whatever else in the industry, so.
What are some of your 5-year, 10-year plan or your goals?
I really don't even analyze it that far. Take it one day at a time, because I'm still in the struggle. I'm over here still working on stability and dibbing and dabbing on my book and stuff like that. So I'm just getting started. You know what I mean? All the money and success, all the vehicles, all the women, all that is not success to me. You know what I mean? Like I said, I made millions and I spend millions, Even my lifestyle over there was very negative, just really out there,
If there's one positive thing that you can create a domino effect from, what would it be?
Just spreading those positive words of knowledge, bro. You know what I mean?
So with what you understood growing up and what you were shown within the society of the warriors, this is very touchy to me. How do you explain to the warriors listening to stay humble? Because that's not. I speak to a lot of them now, and they always want to lash out and go right to violence, and that's not always the key because you give them the cuss right then and there.
You gotta remember, you know what I mean. The only thing that these governments understand what comes out of a barrel of a gun. You know, you can't sit at the table with these government officials because you'll never get nothing done because they look at us as their children. You know what I mean? Peace, power, and righteousness. You know what I mean? Every nation has that. You know, so it is what it is, bro. So I learned in prison. You know, say if I have an issue and if I don't rectify it and handle it, then I'm gonna have like 100 people disrespecting me. So yes, we can fight, and yes, I may get beat up because there's always somebody bigger than you. But then I'm gonna go back and hit you. But then if I beat you up, then I gotta worry about you coming back. So
It's not about the violence. It's about using your brain. You know.
That too, but at the end of the day, sometimes in the streets or even incarceration, that's all people understand is violence, right?
That's the confusion that the world loves.
Yeah, everybody got their analogy, their opinion. You know what I mean? And everybody's entitled to their opinion. You know, unless learn to hit things full force. You know, not leaving nothing. Things undone. You know what I mean?
No rock unturned.
Yes, basically. But I'm still a peaceful person, though. You know what I mean? Believe it or not, I don't like violence. I saw a lot in prison. People getting killed, people getting stabbed. I'm so shell shocked that I don't even watch UFC. 'Cause I get nothing out of men beating each other up. If I know somebody's getting stabbed, I'm not gonna watch that. I'm gonna keep it moving.
Just remember, you can't be successful in prison. So that's one thing I've learned. I mean, you can be, but what good is how you're gonna enjoy it?
Yeah,
You're miserable.
exactly.
So I don't like to glamorize in prison because that's
Me either.
We gotta try to spread the positive stuff. You know what I mean? That's done and over, and this is the new world that we're living in.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So we gotta teach these kids that that's a bad part of our lives, but you don't want to go there.
Yeah. Nah, it's definitely a dark place, bro. But that on the flip script, in a nutshell, it's like, I woke up there. I gained knowledge there. You know what I mean? I even learned, how to iron clothes, First go up, I ended up in shock. I didn't know how to iron it. They wanted me to iron clothes, and I learned how to cook in there. I basically, was raised, and then, I utilized that for society, from cooking to even iron clothes and digesting, who we are as peoples, So, yes, it is a negative, but it's also a positive. It's all what you make of it, you know what I mean? Some people just sit up, get high, don't read, don't work out, and they want to make a plan a week before they get out, You gotta make those positive changes while you go in, and flip that script from a negative to a positive, So that's one thing I learned, flipping the script, not being a seller this morning, being locked up because that would drive you crazy, If you're working out and you're reading, making good use of your time, it all adds on to who you are as a person and coming in tune with your duties as an individual living in communities like us,
Absolutely. How can you uplift the people with some positive words right now? We like to, when we get toward the end of the segment, we try to share a positive word, something that you can uplift these people with.
Just to let these youth know that, that we're all special, and we all got meaning and we all got duties. And I understand a lot of us are, assimilated, and a lot of us are sleeping. But you know what? Gain knowledge. Knowledge is power. Ignorance is death. Trace those roots to the peace tree, and everything in our duties are all in the wampums. Everything's there for us. You go right on the internet and digest all this. So one fundamental is gain knowledge. You know, knowledge is power, ignorance is death. You know. So
where can people find you? On what are your platforms?
I'm on Instagram underneath M_Jocko_. And basically all that's positive stuff with my work with Grea8 Gawd, behind the scenes, you know, helping them out with the camera, and then a lot of stuff with my book and my author, and every post is meaning, and every picture has a positive post and rating on there. So it's a journey of my life, and everything's there. It's not in depth, but it's there. You know, so yeah.
Well, Trials and Tribulations really appreciate you stopping on out and sharing your story.
Yes, I appreciate this show, and you're doing a hell of a good job, man.
Thank you.
I appreciate this podcast, and I admire your movement. Keep chipping away, man. You know.
Appreciate you.
Yes, brother.
Thank you.
Yes.
Happiness is here, and I can feel it within.